Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Sham Ashram in Cali, Colombia. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. What's the date of the week, Mara?
Thursday.
It's Thursday. We're totally lost on time. I was like, what day is it today? And I had like 4 different answers in the car. It's like, I think it's Tuesday. It's definitely Saturday. We're here in Cali, Colombia, where they don't keep track of days here. It's just part of their culture. No, it's just like we're sort of lost. We don't keep track of days. We're sort of lost, but things are going good. We had a great morning yesterday, didn't we?
We did.
Want to share it for the Zoomers and the others out there?
We were like preparing ourselves for meditation. So we drove for, 40 minutes or so to get like up to this mountainous region.
It's very sort of Rishikesh-esque.
Yeah, it feels like Rishikesh. It definitely does. And then we got, but we were silent or just chanting japa, doing meditation the whole way up. There's no talking, because it's easy just to start jibber jabbering about anything. But when we got to that point, we wanted to be really ready for it. So we just chanted in the car on the way up, or in the buses on the way up, little vans on the way up. And then we walked silently through this. I mean, it's about as beautiful any place in the world, walking up in these mountainous regions of Colombia. And we walked along this trail, and there's this waterfall like the whole thing is just like one big long waterfall, but you go up, you go up, you go up. You're in real thick jungle. And then you get to this huge waterfall. I think they said it was 130 meters, right? So that's like 400 feet or something like that. It's like,
oh, wow. Does it seem that big? That's a lot.
That's what they said, 130
It was big,
meters.
but 130 meters? She did say that.
Yeah.
She said that. I think she knows, Raghu. I think she knows.
Yeah. I didn't measure it.
Well, in any case, when you get there, when it all opens up and you're standing before that waterfall, it's like majestic, right? It's powerful. Yeah. And you're feeling this energy coming from it. So we all sat there right by that huge, massive waterfall. And first we chanted together. We chanted Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, like real slow and deep. And then we spent just some time there meditating, Then we drank the water coming from the waterfall, full of that prana. And then we walked back down, and then we went to this other swimming hole, right, where there's like this slide. People should check out Raghunath's Instagram for that.
Yeah, that was great. It was it's just like a natural water slide.
Yeah. So we kind of had like one more like meditative half of the thing, and then more like a fun half of the thing. We got both, right? We do both around here.
And we're winding down.
We're winding down.
We're winding down. It's the Kirtan Academy shows up in a few days. I think
then we wind it back up.
Nath, Matt Godin, a few others out there coming. And these guys, we're going to say goodbye. We're having our final Kirtan. We've had really nice evening programs. Kirtan satsangs have been really, really joyous, really inspiring. And all you want to do when you walk away from this stuff is like, how can I do this more? How can I keep this more in my life?
Right.
How can I make this the new normal?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Kirtan with like-minded people, good food, close to nature, studying cultural arts that uplift the consciousness,
reading sacred literature. Am I missing something out?
Animals.
Animals meandering about.
Connecting with the animals.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been good.
All right.
Okay. All right, what do you say we dive into some nectar nuggets, Kaustubha?
Yeah, what are they about today?
Well, this one first is from a old friend of mine. It's actually from the entire Chinese culture.
Okay.
It's a Chinese proverb, and they're good friends of mine.
Okay.
You know, China is like a whole
That's why you
nother
spend a lot of
world.
time in Chinatown down there, right?
I love Chinatown, actually. There are a lot of vegetarian stuff. There's a lot of martial arts stuff. You know, it's like one of those ancient cultures like India.
Yeah,
know?
it's got a lot of similarities.
It's yeah. Yes.
Especially their wisdom culture.
Their wisdom culture is impressive. It's impressive, as well as their martial arts culture. Okay, here's some nuggets. Ready?
Mhm.
You cannot prevent the birds of sorrow from flying over your head,
True.
but you can prevent them from building nests in your hair.
Not by shaving your head.
Yeah, that's one way.
I like this
Birds
nugget.
of sorrow. Yeah.
I
Don't
think-
hang. You don't have to let that sorrow hang in the head.
Yeah, I think it's got a yogic aspect, and it's got just like a mental health aspect to it, right? That like I think we're all prone to feel some sense of depression or some sense of sorrow in life from time to time. But if you can remember that it's like a bird flying over, right? It's there one moment, it comes and it goes, and rather than letting it proverbially build a nest, in your mind and stay there and create turbo scenarios and dwell on it and worry about it and make it worse than it is. It's all right if that melancholy is there in the mind a little bit. You can observe it, right? You sit there and you watch it come, you watch it go. That's Bhagavad Gita, right? Second chapter.
Yeah.
It comes like the winter and and summer seasons.
Yeah, I've been there a lot lately because I've really come into for the first time it's really coming into reality that I'm going through a divorce and I'm not going to have my kids with me all the time. Like they're going to go to another household and then they're going to come to my house. It's a major shift. Like they're not going to be there on the regular one, even when I'm home. I mean, I've always traveled, and oftentimes I bring the kids. I've had Rocco with me. He just went back yesterday. But it's sort of like it's going to be peculiar to have a household, but not my kids there. So I've had to. And yesterday was my little son's birthday, and it's sort of like I had to get videos of the birthday and talk on FaceTime. And it was just sort of like it really like stuck me in a real trigger point that I haven't been hit yet, really. And I had to do a lot of like zooming out, and not to be insensitive or even lax of my duty as a parent, but this is what happens when the container of family cracks. That okay, that's how it's going to be, and we're all going to feel the effects of that. And I'm sure they're feeling some effect of it, and I'm going to feel the effect of it. And I have to. It's a little sad, and it's a little emotional. And if unless you can zoom out of it, this is one of those things that could haunt a person in their head. And I mean, not like I'm over it. It's going to reoccur as this new transition for me is happening.
But you're not letting it rule you or crush you.
Well, at least yesterday I didn't. Yesterday I didn't because I was hit. Right. I was hit sort of like with the reality bat in the head, and I had to really zoom out real quick, or else I was going to get taken down by those birds of sorrow pecking at my skull.
Well, we call that, that's like you're governing your thoughts. You're taking control on it, which brings us to the next nugget.
Ready?
Yeah. Who's
this
it
is from another old friend of mine. You might have heard of her. Louisa May Alcott.
Oh, yes.
She wrote Little Men and Little Women.
What was that, Raghu? Like
She did write Little Men.
okay,
He's
but
known for writing Little Women, though.
yeah,
I know, but I just
you-
wanna
you
put it
sound
out
like you
there.
weren't even going to say Little Women. What was-
I was, but she wrote Little Men. She never gets the credit for that one.
Okay, fair enough.
Mara, did you read Little Women?
Yes, I read Little Women.
Talking to the mic, Mara.
Yes, I read Little Women.
Was
Yeah.
that in private school?
They're
that
all girls private school. They wouldn't. Did they encourage you to read Little Men?
They probably didn't
I
even
think I
have
read
Little
it
Men in that
on my
school.
own outside of school.
You had
I
to go
never read it.
outside the
I-
school for that.
Yeah.
I never read it personally. What's it about? Is it about little people?
No, it's not.
They're just little. They have a whole community.
It's a little family of 3.
Little women.
No, they're not little.
They're not
They're
little.
just
Did
young.
they mean?
They're young.
Oh, they're young. I thought it means
Okay.
like little.
It
Like we've
sounds
got to
a
be
little
bigger
demeaning.
than this. We've
Sounds
got
a
to be
little de-
bigger.
Well, like
Okay.
we've got like little Karuna here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they little like that? Little.
Little
Yes.
woman.
Okay,
They're
like
little
young women,
Yes.
not little.
Okay, well, let's hear a nugget.
All right. And she was one of those transcendentalists. She was like a rubbing
Was she?
elbows with with Thoreau and Emerson and
I
that
didn't
whole.
know
She
that.
grew up in Boston.
Okay, and they had
She
quite
was
a
a-
team of
She
writers
was like an
there.
early feminist and prohibitionist and
Suffragette.
Abolitionists.
abolitionist. What did I say?
Prohibitionists.
Prohibition.
Prohibition.
That's like a straight edge of the 1930s.
She might have been. I don't know.
She might have been a prohibitionist, but it was about 100 years earlier. A prohibitionist. An exhibitionist. She was definitely an exhibitionist. She was.
All right. What did
I
she
just trashed
say?
her whole life there. All righty, let's hear about Louisa May. A little
to read this
kingdom
right.
it's a poem.
It's a poem.
A little kingdom I possess, where thoughts and feelings dwell. And very hard the task I find of governing it well.
Boom. Nice.
You like that?
Read it again, Raghu.
A little kingdom I possess, where thoughts and feelings dwell. Right? This thing here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And very hard the task I find of governing it well. To govern the kingdom of the mind.
Yeah. I think many people don't even realize that that's like,
think.
in one sense, like, you know, the basic human challenge and task that we're meant to purpose in one sense, you know, is to not just let it go wherever it goes, not to let it pull us around, but to
Yeah.
govern it. But as Louisa May says, it's a difficult task.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
You know, it's really what yoga is all about. It's about governing your thoughts.
Okay.
She was a yogi.
AJ Sullivan says Raghu was accidentally correct. This is on the message board.
She is
Alcott
an-
gave her
she's an
energy to
exhibitionist?
practical. That's what I was thinking. Practical reforms, women's rights, and temperance. Well,
yeah,
I knew
no,
that
he was right
I
about
just
that. But
I
the
know
word
that
was
AJ
completely wrong.
Sullivan. It was the exhibitionism and the what was the other prohibitionism. That was
Prohibition
that was.
and temperance are the same, though.
I say suffragette. That's the word I think
Oh.
you would be best for.
Is that where they got
That's
Suffragette City from?
Well,
Suffragette City.
Suffragette.
What was that? What was that about? What does suffragette mean?
It's somebody who's fighting for women's rights. A suffragette.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You learn something new
Suffragettes.
every day, Raghu.
Okay.
Usually from Mara too.
All righty. What do you say we
That
dive?
hold on. That internal kingdom actually goes nicely with that Simon Haas book, the Book of Dharma that I was reading. He talks
been
a
reading
lot
the Book
about
of Dharma?
governing that. Yeah, he talks a lot about governing your internal kingdom as well.
Well, you know
Mara's
who
just
was
sitting poolside reading that book all day. That's why
I
she's
know.
bronze right now.
Bronson. But well, you know who else is really expert at governing the that internal kingdom of thoughts? Look at it, just blank.
I mean, Brigu Mooney,
No, I mean,
it's
well,
Lord
Brigham,
Shiva.
he got his mustache. That's what I was going to say, Lord Shiva. Let's read about him right now.
Oh, all right.
It all ties in, Raghu. It all ties in. When I pull
got
up
it.
these nuggets, Raghu, sometimes I'm tying them into the daily theme. You just watch.
Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Agyanan Jamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Midatam Yena Tasmai
Shri Guruve
the
Namaha.
torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances at their lotus feet.
Okay. Cut out there for a second, but I filled it in to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Prabhu. Appreciate that.
Why don't we start on 35 where we ended yesterday?
Alrighty.
Reading
35.
from?
Reading from Mara.
Reading from Canto 4, Chapter 6, Text 35.
The demigod saw Lord Shiva situated in his perfection as the master of the senses, knowledge, fruitive activities, and the path of achieving perfection. He was the friend of the entire world, and by virtue of his full affection for everyone, he was very, very auspicious.
So
there he is. He's the master of the kingdom of the mind.
Yeah. It says here he is, it mentions vidya, meaning
Knowledge.
tapa,
Austerity.
yoga patam.
Yoga patam. Yoga patam.
There's a word for, what do you call yourself, Raghu?
Sanskrit glossary goody? Word
yeah,
nerd?
But the like the more technical term for the word nerd.
Philologist?
Yeah, philologist. That word patam should be interesting for you.
Patam. Patam.
I think it means like path. The English word path comes from it.
Oh, interesting. Path.
Right? Yeah.
Yogic path. Okay.
So, he was a master. He had mastered knowledge, austerity. He had mastered the path of yoga.
Did we ever figure out if money means money? Like money?
Yeah. Who do we put on that?
Who was on that?
Bobby.
Bobby Marchand?
Bobby? Is she here?
Oh, she's on the show. I bet she dropped the ball with this.
And what about
just saying, just because she was leaving, she had a lot of stuff to do. She's back with her daughter.
Fair enough.
Bring my son home.
All
right, you get a pass on that one, Bobby, but we want an answer.
You were in the car yesterday, like, remember that? You were like designated duties, like you're a CEO.
Like I was giving. Okay, Bunky, find out Did he do it, Bunky? He didn't even do it, and he did it.
You're getting nowhere. People are not following your orders.
What?
Bunky was supposed to find out the origin of the word Hummer.
I wanted to find out where the word Hummer came from. We're driving around this Hummer all the time. I wanted to find out. Every day I wonder, why is this car called the Hummer? Well, because it's got a very strange engine. It sounds like it's humming. So I was thinking it had something to do with the
engine.
Anyway.
Possible.
Kaustubha, you brought upon that squirrel, Kaustubha. I was doing really good today.
Okay. Well, what we're talking about, yoga, you asked, no, you brought the money thing. So.
No. Well, that was part of the.
Okay. Well, one thing was leading to another. One thing was leading to that. So, okay. So Shiva, it's mentioning his character, right? Just when we got to that waterfall, like we're climbing up that mountain and we're silent, and then it opened up and it was like, wow. And I think that's what all of these demigods and, brahmanas who found themselves in trouble. They messed everything up. Their whole thing got all blown up. They went to Brahma. Brahma said, "You offended Lord Shiva. Let's go talk to him." So Brahma brings him to Lord Shiva, and then yesterday we were reading all these beautiful verses about the scenic, natural beauty of Kailash, where Lord Shiva is living, and then he's sitting under this massive tree, and he's sitting there. He's got Kuvera on one side, he's got the four Kumars on the other side. And he's sitting there like he's in meditation. He's speaking. What we're going to hear, he's actually speaking to Narada as well. He's sitting in his yogic posture. He's impressive, And so they're seeing him, and you just look at him. You can see this. I think just by seeing him, you understood how special he was. And now it's describing how special he is. He's mastered knowledge. He's mastered austerity. He's mastered yoga. He's Vishva Suhridam. What does that mean, Raghu? Sanskrit.
Vishva, the friend of the entire universe.
Yeah, friend of the whole world, friend of the universe.
Vishva Suridam.
It mentions that he is Vatsalyat. You know what that means?
It's like he's a friend.
Vatsal, yeah, well, it means, yeah. Well, here it's
Also
translated as
friend.
full of affection.
Affectionate. Like Krishna is Bhakta Vatsal.
Yeah, like
Right.
he's very affectionate to his
Very
devotees.
affectionate to his Bhakta.
Yeah, and therefore, because of all that, it says that he is Lokamangalam.
He's a little loca.
No, that's not.
Living the
that's-
vida loca.
That's where you're taking your Sanskrit nerdism too far.
Loka, he's from the auspicious. It brings auspiciousness to the world. Loka Mangalam.
He's auspicious for everyone everywhere, I suppose you could say. Yeah, Loka Mangalam. Why don't you read the purport, the second paragraph of the purport, Raghunath? It's very
Of
interesting.
35 or 36?
35.
Okay.
Lord Shiva is described here.
Gotcha. Lord Shiva is described here as Adishwara. Ishvara means controller.
Boom. You just can't stump Mara anymore.
I know.
I got that one yesterday.
I know. She's unstumpable.
But you didn't forget.
The unstumpable bronze.
That's a good new nickname for Mara, the Unstumpable.
The unstumpable. And Ishvara means controller, and Adishvara means particularly controller of the senses. Generally, our materially contaminated senses are apt to engage in sense gratificatory activities. But when a person is elevated by wisdom and austerity, the senses then become purified and they become engaged in the service of the personality of Godhead. Lord Shiva is the emblem of such perfection, and therefore in the scriptures it is said, Vaishvanam Yata Shambhu. Lord Shiva is a Vaishnava. Lord Shiva
is the best Vaishnava. Right.
is the best
Vaishnavanam
Vaishnava.
Yatasham,
Here it
yeah.
just says Vaishnava.
Oh, yeah, it does. Okay.
Lord Shiva is a Vaishnava. Lord Shiva, by his actions within the material world, teaches all conditioned souls how to engage in devotional service 24 hours a day. Therefore, he is described here as Loka Mangala, good fortune personified for all conditioned souls.
Now let's look at this, Raghunath, right? It's interesting what Prabhupada says here, and let's try to understand what it means, right? We're hearing how Lord Shiva is perfectly controlled, and therefore he's like auspicious to everyone. What did it say? That when generally our material contaminated sense, but when a person is elevated by wisdom and austerity, right? This is part of our yogic path, right? It's not just doing the asana. You begin to interact with a wisdom culture. You begin to apply that wisdom in your life. So you become elevated by wisdom and austerity. Austerity is a way of getting the senses under control, getting the mind under control. Then the senses become purified. And so what does that mean? It says generally our materially contaminated senses, right? But I think to understand this a little bit more, we can go to Bhagavad Gita, right? You know where I'm thinking? Any idea?
I'm thinking the entire Gita.
Yeah, you could say that.
It's one
But I
of
was
those, right?
Yeah,
One of those
sure.
topics.
Sure, it's coming up often. But I was thinking specifically of the
Lust
third
sits in the
chapter.
mind, chapter 3.
Boom, boom, Raghu. Boom, that's what I was thinking. So, like, if we go to the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the text...
This wasn't prepared.
I know, that was great. We're thinking alike. We're connecting, So I was thinking text 36 through 41. And in text 36, Arjuna asks a question. What's that question? Mara. Let's see if we can stump her. Oh, yeah. Okay. He's going to up the level of the questions now.
Oh boy.
The wind.
No, it had nothing to do with the wind. Brother.
Controlling the mind.
Was
Which
I
is
controlling-
occurring, like,
No, it's a
Handle.
question. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, this is text 36, third chapter, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, to
That's what I meant to say.
acts that bring bad reactions, right? Even unwillingly, as if engaged by force. Why do I do the things that I
That's a
do?
great verse. Say it again. It's such a good, nice verse.
And again, let's not get caught up let's not get triggered by the word sinful, right? It's like,
Or even get triggered by lust, because lust just means
by
your
lust.
passion to do something. I
but we
gotta have
haven't
a
gotten to lust yet. That was a spoiler,
Oh,
Raghu.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. So Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, O Krishna, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force?
Yeah. Ever do
Okay.
a sinful act unwillingly? I don't want to do this, but
I know I shouldn't be doing it, but
I know I shouldn't be doing this, but
I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So-
It's as if by force.
Right.
Like the body's now taking control of the intelligence.
Right.
It's really interesting, like
Okay.
a series of events.
Well, here comes the answer. And now let's not get triggered by the word lust, because really lust here is being, and again, Prabhupada, his English is more of like this old, English, right? Old British English, where he was trained up in
Victorian English.
Yeah. So like, they nowadays when we say lust, it almost always has a sexual connotation. Whereas lust,
Replace it for potato chips. You know what I mean? The whole thing
Lust for potato
takes
chips?
sex out of this and put potato chips into it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Where does one
Desire.
get compelled to do things? Have you ever eaten a chip and then you can't stop eating the chip? And it's like it's as if it's going against your will. The body's eating against your will. And he's saying, where is that coming from? It's lust only.
Yeah, I got lust here. I pulled it up in the dictionary here.
right.
So, the first definition is the one that how it's most commonly used now, right? Very strong sexual desire. But the second definition is a passionate desire for something. For instance, a lust for power.
Lust for life.
Oh, Iggy Pop there. Okay, I know that one. Okay, so let's think of when we're hearing lust in this answer, let's think of that, a strong, passionate desire, right? So Krishna responds that it is lust only, Arjuna. And where does
Read
that
the
lust
question
come
one more
from?
time, Prabhu. Read the
Okay,
question one more time.
again. Arjuna asked Krishna, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Krishna responds, it is lust only, Arjuna. Well, where does that lust come from? Which is born from contact with the material mode of passion. There's an energy out there that's influencing us, right? And it's later transformed into wrath, which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. So our desires lead to wrath. They lead to anger, frustration, anger, so on, right? Now he's going to give some more information on this desire, this lust. Really, the Sanskrit word is kama, right? He says, as fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity, us, the soul, is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust, different degrees of this desire. Right? And I believe in the purport to that, Prabhupada describes that in the different species that we end up in, like as a human, as an animal, or even as a plant, we become covered by different levels of this in our sensitivity. It can be more and more covered. And
Lusty.
then he says,
Yeah.
Now,
I'm just
he's
thinking,
gonna-
like,
yeah.
go
ahead.
I think
No, you please.
every species have their own different version of lust. Isn't it interesting?
True. Although they're
Lusty
similar.
crocodile.
Yeah.
Lusting for something. I just don't know what.
Hippopotamus.
Oh, they're the lustiest.
I know, they're terrible.
Hippos.
Okay. So here's text 39. Now Krishna's going to give some because the reason why we went over here, right, was because the Prabhupada in the commentary to the verse that we read today, he was describing again how our senses become, what was the word that he used? Educating with love, I'm on the wrong thing here. He was saying that our senses become contaminated, right? Was that what he said? Generally, our materially contaminated senses. Okay. So what does that mean exactly? What are they contaminated by? Does it mean like they're dirty or something? What happens? But this is what Krishna says in the following verse. He says, thus the wise living entities, pure consciousness, that's who we really are, right? By nature. We're wise.
We
pure.
are that fire. We are pure.
Yeah.
We just covered.
We're covered. So thus the wise living...
Such a better way to look at things, huh?
Yeah. And I like how you
Instead of
tied
like,
the fire
we're
in.
broken. We're a broken, sinful living being. We're born sinful. Who wants to go into this world? We are pure, just covered. And your job is to uncover yourself.
Uncover it. So he says the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, desire, kama, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire, which is important. You know how I've been, what I've been, how I've been meditating on that reality recently, Raghunath?
How?
it's like, everybody's one thing that one of the little challenges of being here in Colombia, at least for myself and for some others, we've been getting bit by mosquitoes quite a bit, right?
There's something.
Something.
That we don't know what that's biting us, but it's
Okay.
mosquito
Something's biting us.
esque.
And it's itchy like crazy. And the more that you scratch the itch, it actually, it doesn't go away, You scratch it.
Me and Mara don't get bit anymore because we're fasting.
Good for you.
Where we become alkaline. They don't mess with us anymore. I'm serious. I haven't had a mosquito bite since I got here.
Well done, Raghu. Well done. But in any case, it's like that. We try to fulfill that. We have this itch of material desire. We try to fill it. It doesn't go away. It kind of like when you scratch, it kind of satisfies it while you're scratching. But as soon as you stop, it comes back.
It does
strong.
feel good for a moment.
It does.
And then and then not only does it get worse, but you peeled it open. It's a whole mess.
You make a mess.
Get
of it.
infected again. Yeah, that's what it is. It's scratching the itch of material life. That's what sense gratification is. It doesn't actually fulfill. It makes you want the very same thing more.
I think Mara just noted that down. Did you just?
Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna
she's
write
on
that
it.
down. That's a
Scratching, what was it?
hashtag.
Yeah.
Say it
Gotta get
again.
that.
Scratching the material itch. What was it?
Don't scratch the itch of material life.
Existence.
Existence.
Yeah. So now Krishna, now this is where it really gets into what we're talking about. Krishna says, therefore, O Arjuna, in the beginning, curb this symbol of sin, lust, desire, by regulating the senses, right there, regulating the senses, and slay that. Did I say? Oh no, I missed a verse. Sorry. Let's go back. Text 40. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. This is the point, right? We're talking about materially contaminated senses. He says the senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Therefore, this is text 41. Therefore,
So good.
yeah. Well, so what does that mean? It's like we've got this equipment. We've got a mind. We've got senses. It's like we're plugged into the virtual reality.
Tongue, touch, eyes, nose. They all and lust is sitting in each of the senses.
Right.
And it's covering the intelligence which is behind the mind and senses.
Right. Yeah. When we say mind here, it means that part of our mind, the manas, that part of our mind where desire rests, particularly, right? Like, I like this, I don't like that. It's been programmed in a certain way to find certain things appealing and certain things unappealing. And that's tied right into the senses because the senses are connected with that manas, right? And so they're all programmed. The eyes want to see certain things and the tongue wants to taste certain things, etc. And then there's the intelligence, which can also become bewildered by the desire in the mind, and our rational thought can become affected by desire. So if it's in those three things, it's like, okay, my senses have become contaminated by desire for the things of this world. How to deal with it? And any yoga path has to answer this question: how are you going to deal with desire? You need a strategy. And what Krishna is going to say is in the Bhagavad Gita is you begin by controlling the senses, regulating the senses. That's yoga right there, right? You need to regulate you don't let them do whatever they want. You learn to get them under control. Now, different yoga paths will control it in different ways. Some will just be like a cold turkey path, right? Walk away from it all. Do not engage whatsoever in any way. Then there are other paths, like in Bhakti, we can say, let's engage those senses. Let's even give them what they want, but let's create some boundaries of the way that we're going to, you can still eat delicious food as a Bhakti-yogi, but only after you prepare it as a loving offering to God. So there's a meditation that goes into it that changes the nature of it, right? And so the Bhakti path is it's kind of a broader way of controlling this. And many will argue, and I would agree, a more effective way, more practical way. So
Yeah. And when it comes to, I think it's important to say, a lot of people get into this podcast and therefore they get into the Bhagavatam and they get into their whole new spiritual path. And we find that on a regular basis. But unlike you and me, who got into this, in our teenage years when perhaps we were already vegetarian or already we didn't drink or smoke, sometimes they've been engaging in habits that don't work well with their spiritual life, like drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, eating meat. And after sometimes a lifetime of doing those things, very difficult to let them go because they become habitual. They become part of our persona. I'm a guy who likes a good burger or whatever, or I'm a guy who likes a good beer and then after a while, you're like, okay, how do I handle this? I can't cold turkey it. And so the idea is if you can't cold turkey it, then you've got to regulate it. And regulate it means you pick a certain day that you do that thing. And on the other days, you don't do that thing. You know, if you're struggling with smoking cigarettes, which is a super common one, is okay, you want to smoke cigarettes, you can, but you do it 3 days a week instead of every day, many times a day. And in that regulation, it loosens up that noose of addiction that is very tight around the neck. And then on the days where you have off, you might be like, or that you're allowed to do it. You might be like, I don't even need one today. And slowly, the grip lets go of you and we become a little free. So if you can't just go cold turkey with things, there's got to be an honest, self-reflective way of regulating them and not just sort of just like hiding it, right? Because sometimes we can't give up something. We feel like, well, then I can't play the game. You can play the game. Just regulate it and be honest about it. It's okay. We've all got some things that we're a little attached to, and we get it. And we shouldn't expect that everybody's going to rise to the same platform. And then even when you clean up those things, then there's a lot more subtle things we're dealing with. We're dealing with ego things that we cannot get over, control issues that like sort of have wrapped me up since childhood. Maybe or the way we treat people, our language, our sarcasm, our rudeness, our abuse, our obtuseness. So it's not just like, okay, I've got those things out of my life. Now I'm in the club. We're always trying to get into Krishna's little inner circle. And it's a lot of work. And the gross things is the threshold. But then all those subtle things too will start to manifest as well. And we might be good with the subtle things, but not good with the gross things. So there's a place for everybody here. And we're all going to be different because we all have different karma that we're getting into this with.
Right. Agreed, Raghunath. Yeah, and it's a perfect way to say. I always when I hear what you're saying, I always think of that story that Shyamasundar Prabhu tells, when it was like the very early days of the Hare Krishna movement, and he was like, he hardly knew anything at all, but he was carving this deity of Lord Raghunath that's still worshipped in the temple today in Berkeley, I believe, right? And he was carving it, and he was like, even as he was carving it, he had his pack of cigarettes on top of the deity of Lord Krishna, right, like that. And he was addicted to smoking cigarettes, and Prabhupada knew about it. And he said it to Prabhupada, I'm addicted, I smoke. Prabhupada said, well, how much do you smoke? And he said, I smoke like a pack a day or something like that. And he said, and how many cigarettes are in the pack? And he said, 30 or something like that. And so he said, okay, so like, so you're smoking like 30 a day. Tomorrow smoke 29, and the day after that smoke 28, and the day after that, and he said, and in this way, after a month, you'll just let it go. And you can say that, but I think there's another part of the equation. Part of it is regulating the senses, and for the Bhakti-yogis, it's how you engage the senses on top of that, right? It's what you don't do, but there's also a very positive what you do. And when you and I think Prabhupada had that faith that as long as I have him engaged in these services in bhakti, as long as his mind is becoming absorbed in kirtan and in japa and in hearing Bhagavatam and so on, that by the time he's dropped all those things, he's going to have something positive welling up in him that's going to help him carry. And that's Bhagavad Gita too, right? Like 259, Vishaya Vinivartante Niraharasyadehi, that we may restrict our senses from sense enjoyment. But the taste for that is still in the mind. It doesn't go away immediately. But by experiencing a higher taste, by engaging your senses and your mind in devotion, and there's an entire culture of bhakti there to absorb your mind in. In that way, you can easily give up these lower tastes.
Yeah.
But
just like you said yesterday, Kaustubha he was saying earlier in the show how we had this plan where we go up to the waterfall. We don't talk, and it's silent, and we just appreciate the waterfall. We sit in chanting and meditation, and I thought that's a great idea. But then he came up with this other addendum. Is that it? Add-ons like, how about in the car ride there we don't talk either? And I was like, come on. I can't talk in the car. It's not like I can meditate in the car. My chanting stinks in the car. Let us talk, Kaustubha. Let us talk in the damn car, please. And so everyone was like, okay, no talking. And then even Baba Grahi was with us, and he was like, "Hey, can we put?" And he's Baba Grahi. He's so sweet, isn't he? He's this sweet devotee here, and he goes, "Prabhu, kirtan? We can play kirtan." I was like, "No," Kaustubha said, "No
I didn't say
kirtan
that.
in the car.
I didn't say no
You
kirtan.
can't do anything. It's all silent."
I didn't.
And I was like, and I'm sitting there, but it's true. It's not just like, because you can be silent, you can be renounced, you cannot eat, you can be right, sit in. But if the mind is agitated or bothered or angry or revengeful or spiteful, what good is that silence? So we do need the positive alternative as well. And when it comes to something like speaking, okay, yeah, you're right. We will just gab about anything. God knows I will. Can we engage that gabbing in positive, uplifting, spiritual energy? Because sound is like just energy, like shooting out of our bodies. Can I engage it in a positive way, or must it be mundane or negative? What to speak of negative, dark, of this world that keeps us more encaged. So that sound can be liberating, or the sound can be bonding. And all of these things in bhakti is the positive use of the body, of the thoughts, of the minds, of the senses, instead of just negation. And that's what's the beauty about bhakti, I find, compared to these monastic traditions that sort of sever ourselves with our body in a very, very almost like a guillotine, just cuts it.
Right. Well, it's said that practice of austerity, which in one sense that is, right? I'm going to control my sense. I'm just going to cut it off. I'm going to go cold turkey. That it's warned. The Bhakti-yogi acharyas, the great teachers in the Bhakti lineages, warn that austerity, although it's an important part of yogic practice, if one's not careful, if that becomes the focus of one's spiritual practice, austerity, it has a tendency to harden the heart. Right? And really what we're trying to do is soften the heart for bhakti. And it can make someone judgmental, it can make someone cold,
Yeah.
But we call this regulation of the senses, the Sanskrit term for that is niyama, right? There's yama, there's niyama. And in that,
yama niyama.
Yeah. And so, in that text 41, the niyama is mentioned, that text that we read where it says, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, by niyama, right? And so in the purport to that, and it's very interesting to mention it. Why is it? It's because desire, kama, is jnana vijnana nashanam. You know what that means? Nashanam?
No.
It means it's the destroyer, right? Nasha means like destroyer. So jnana vijnana nashanam means it destroys knowledge, it destroys realization, wisdom, you could say. Desire does that, right? We want something so much, we begin to...
We get clouded.
You get very clouded. But attuned to what you were saying, and attuned about like Bhakti's approach to this, I mentioned earlier that every yoga path, it needs to have a strategy of how to deal with desire, right? So that our senses and our mind and our senses don't control us. So in the Bhakti path, it's more about engaging the senses than it is about cutting off the senses. But there's also that whole theological idea behind it, like what is lust? What is desire? Is it like something that the devil comes and like squirts on us or something like that? Like what is desire?
The devil, unholy, squirt.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
So in the commentary to text 341 in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada writes this, and I think this is something that everyone can take in and really hold on to, and it's a real game changer in terms of our own spiritual practice. How Prabhupada speaks about, again, he's going to use the word lust. Let's not be triggered by it, but we're talking about is like passionate desire.
Getting triggered.
And don't get triggered. So he says lust is only, and there's another word we have to not get triggered here by it, perverted, right? He says perverted here. We can say warped or whatever, right? But like he says, lust is the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity.
Just That's a beautiful statement, huh?
Yeah.
Lust is the perverted what? Say again?
Lust is the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity.
I like that. I
Okay.
like that.
Yeah. So it's not like it's saying that it's not something that we need to surgically remove. We don't need our desire in life is not something that we need to somehow surgically remove from our mind and from our senses.
Anybody feel like they need to surgically remove their lust?
But it's something that we need to transform. It's not something that we need to kill. It's something that we need to and not only transform but restore, right? Like restore to its original state. So Prabhupada continues. He says, lust is only the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity. But if one is educated in Krishna consciousness from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. When love of God deteriorates into lust, it is very difficult to return to the normal condition. And that's what we're all struggling with, right? He says, nonetheless, Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. That's for all us dented cans out there, for all people coming to Wisdom of the Sages, later in life. They weren't raised as brahmacharis in life and didn't live in ashrams and weren't trained by gurus and yoga and all that. But even if you're a latecomer, what did Prabhupada say? Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. So, from any stage of life, or from the time of understanding its urgency, one can begin regulating the senses in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord, and turn that lust into love of Godhead, the highest perfectional stage of human life. Beautiful paragraph, huh?
Oh, yeah, me likey.
You like that?
Me likey.
I was thinking one last thing on this topic that we could maybe round out the day on.
Tell me.
Because we're talking about, we began with this idea that Prabhupada was saying that the senses are materially contaminated. Okay. What are they contaminated by? Desire, right? Passion, desire. And then so they control us. We need to somehow get that dealt with. And in bhakti, it has to do with engaging the senses. And when you learn to engage your senses in bhakti, then some special things happen. And so this is a verse, it's a commonly quoted verse. It's originally from the Narada Pancharatra, spoken by Narada. It's also found in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, comes out, but Prabhupada loosely translates as the Nectar of Devotion. And it's also there in the Madhya Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. You'll find it quoted often in many places. And that is this verse, Sarvopadi Vinir Muktam Tat Parat Vena Nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchate. That bhakti or devotional service means engaging all of our senses in the service of the Lord, who is the master of the senses. Right? He actually, it's all his equipment, it's all his energy. He's really the master of it. Often they control us, but bhakti means I'm going to engage them in the service of the person whose energy my senses are. Right? When the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is that one is freed from all material designations. Sarvopadi Vinir Muktam. What are material designations? Give me some, Raghu.
Material designations. I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer. I'm a husband. I'm a wife. I'm a son.
I'm a human. Yeah,
I'm a human. I'm a Ivy League. Or I'm a white male or a black female, or whatever it is. It's something that has a connection to my body, or one of the an extension of my body, like my vehicle, my home, my address. My career.
Those material designations are very deep. They're very strong. We think I am a man, I am a woman, I am an American, I am a human. But from the yogic perspective, no, you're just a spark of spiritual energy temporarily passing through that relative circumstance. That you're in one body, one moment.
Trying to identify with that thing to find some worth.
Yeah.
Where our worth is actually something much more subtle than that.
Right.
So then when we lose that thing, they take away my medical license, or I lose my position, or I lose my beauty, or I lose my skill, or I lose my hands, or we lose my hair, whatever it be. There's a deep brokenness because I've identified with that my entire life as me. And I was sort of like rallying behind it. Like, here is my card. Here's my website. Here's my thing, and here's my nation or my ethnicity or my political party. And for some reason, when that gets taken away, there's like a devastation.
That's a great point, Raghunath. I love that, and maybe maybe this is a takeaway, right? Like if you identify with that which can be broken, you will feel broken, right? It's right. So the yogi is not identifying with anything that's breakable. All these material by definition means it's going to be broken by time at some point. At the very least, right? In different ways. So we have these material designations. When you engage your senses in the service of the master of the senses, in the service of Lord Krishna through the practice of bhakti, the first result of that is one becomes free of material designations. And even we do that like consciously in the ritual of puja, where one does this practice called bhuta shuddhi previous to the ritual, right? Or let's say you begin the ritual with it, and where you consciously try to for the next 20 minutes I'm going to be doing this ritual, let me consciously let go of all my material designations, right? I'm a mother with responsibilities as a mother. I'm a woman. I'm an American. I have this job that I have to do. And all those things, in a sense, are relatively important. But for the next 20 minutes, I don't want to be there. It's just me and God. And that's who I am eternally, right? That's not a material designation. That's eternal spiritual reality. Let me operate on the level of that spiritual reality in this ritual. And in that way, you cultivate that understanding that I'm not this body. So the first thing is one is freed from all material designations. And the second result is one's senses are purified simply by being employed in the service of the Lord. And that means, what does it mean that they're purified? They're no longer controlled by desire. My senses are no longer working against me. Now they're working for me, right? My senses want to see the form of Krishna, right? My palate only wants to taste the prasadam of Krishna, etc. That's how we do it.
We never even got to verse 36 today, did we?
We didn't need to.
Man, I had a big question for you.
You're going to have to save it for tomorrow.
Okay, here's the teaser.
All right.
Ready?
Yeah.
Lord Shiva seated on deer skin.
Okay.
So my question for Kaustubha, and I want you to think about this. Would you consider wearing ahimsa fur? Sit with it. Sit with it.
We'll answer that
Ahimsa
tomorrow.
fur. Can you imagine Kaustubha walking in this whole fur outfit and going, hey, it's ahimsa fur? Or would you think, no, it's a carcass. I don't want this on my body.
If I were going to wear a
Don't answer. Don't answer.
Oh,
Think.
okay.
Let that be our open. Let's come out of the gates with ahimsa fur tomorrow.
Okay. Any takeaways?
Yeah, I also have some announcements.
Okay.
Michelle Berger is offering an asana class for our Patreon members at 6:30 p.m. this evening.
Michelle Berger.
And there's a Bhakti Recovery Group meeting at noon today.
Bhakti Recovery. Hey, if you're new to the show, you got to check out Bhakti Recovery Group. It's a 12-step program for those who struggle with addiction or just appreciate a 12-step community. But instead of saying the higher power, we say sweet baby Krishna. That's all. But it's under the same format as a 12-step program. So if you're new to that, check that out. It's on our website, wisdomofthesages.com, for more info.
Yep. All right, takeaways. When you apply wisdom and austerity, the senses become purified.
Oh, yeah.
Our desires lead to frustration and anger.
Oh, yeah.
Lust covers our knowledge and bewilders us.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Regulate to loosen the noose of addiction.
Yeah.
Can I engage
We're
my
the noose
senses?
of addiction from...
We're noose of addiction from Danbury.
Can I engage my senses to uplift and elevate?
Nice.
Don't let austerity harden the heart.
No.
You can't find worth in your material designation.
True.
You can find worth in it, but it's going to be
Not
shattered. Not lasting worth.
If you identify with that which can be broken, you will feel broken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't scratch the itch of material existence.
Mm-hmm.
And one more. Wisdom of the sages is the fresh aloe on our material world itches.
That's what I've been using, aloe. It's growing all over the place here.
Great.
That was very sweet. That was Hannah Brinkhouse-G who said that, who was once with Mara sunbathing, reading Little Women, and now
right.
she is walking the dog. in icy Connecticut. Do not slip, Hannah Brinkhouse. And Bobby, it's good to see you there. Remember, Bobby, you got some homework. You got to find out if money, which means jewel in Sanskrit, is where we get the English word money from. That's your homework. Somebody's got to do the homework now. Good to see everybody here on Zoom. Always amazed, always inspired. And those who joined us late that I didn't say good morning. Good morning to you. We're here for another month at least, hanging out in Colombia, doing it live at 6 a.m. I want to thank everybody who's joining us. If you want to join us live on Zoom, you can do it. Wisdom of the Sages 108@gmail.com. Just write us. Also, you have questions. Saturday, we take questions. Wisdom of the Sages 108@gmail.com. No question. Don't think like, well, this question's so dumb. They probably know. There's someone who also wants the answer to your question. So write that question down. If you haven't given us a shout out on Apple Podcasts, go there. It helps our rankings on Apple Podcasts. You can check that out. And I am doing a Nepal retreat. If you want to go trekking through the Himalayas with me in March, go to my website, www.raghunath.yoga. And we can go hiking in the Himalayas together, filled with a lot of kirtan and stories about Lord Ram. Also, there's some spots left for Italy. We're doing a Wisdom of the Sages retreat in Italy. All you got to contact is...
Vivi at wotsitaly@gmail.com. And I think it's July 18th through the 25th.
Say that a little louder.
WOTS Italy @gmail.com. Like Wisdom of the Sages, Italy @gmail.com. And it's a cool ashram experience in this incredible villa that's an ashram now. It's a Krishna Bhakti ashram right outside of Firenze. And you get an ashram experience, but it's a beautiful, like a villa, I guess you'd call it, but overlooking the Tuscan countryside. And we go on outings, and we have our Wisdom of the Sages, and we have our morning sangha, we have great kirtan. And last year was just so good that we decided to do it again. But so many spots have filled up from repeat people that we got some more space. So it's kid-friendly too. So if you want to come to have a spiritual experience with your kids, bring them along. I'm bringing my kids.
Speaking of kids, there's a couple of young ladies that are very well dressed and ready to spin here.
Yeah. Bring your kids to Wisdom of the Sages. Here is, let's see. There
Montgomery.
she is. Montgomery's listened to this entire show today, live from New Jersey. We're going to put them right on the highlight board. And there's Karuna. She's 8 years old. She's the older Little Women. This is Little Women right here.
That's her.